When they ignore you, the first instinct for many is to speak louder, move closer, wave their hands, force the connection. But understand this, the moment you beg for attention, you hand over your power. You trade your value for visibility, and that's a trade no one with purpose should ever make. Let them ignore you, because attention that has to be begged for is never rooted in respect. It's a performance, a favor, a temporary glance that disappears as soon as you're no longer convenient. But see, you weren't built to be convenient. You were built to be consistent. You were built to be a force, not a shadow chasing approval. It's tempting, isn't it, to reach out to say, hey, look at me. Don't you see what I bring? Don't you see what I offer? But real value shout. Real value doesn't chase. Diamonds don't knock on doors. Gold doesn't plead to be picked. And people with purpose, they don't beg to be seen. That silence you hear when they ignore you, that's not emptiness. That's your space to grow. That's your opportunity to get stronger, quieter, sharper. If they don't answer your call, redirect your energy. Not toward them, but toward you, your craft, your clarity, your calling. Because the world won't always clap for you when you're doing it right. They won't always recognize the discipline, the nights you went without sleep, the times you held your tongue when you wanted to lash out. But none of that was for them anyway. That was for you. And if it was for you, then you never needed their applause to begin with. Here's the truth. People often ignore what they don't understand or what they can't control. Sometimes they ignore you not because you're irrelevant, but because your presence makes them uncomfortable. You remind them of what they haven't done. You carry the weight of conviction, and not everybody is built to handle that. That's not your fault, and that's not your fight. Your only job is to remain unshaken. Don't post louder. Don't show off more. Don't twist yourself into someone else's mold just to fit into their frame. Keep showing up with quiet excellence. Keep doing the work when no one is clapping. Keep making the choices that reflect who you are, not who they think you should be. Because there's power in silence. There's growth in solitude. And there's dignity in not needing the spotlight to shine. If someone overlooks you, let them, or like noise, make impacts. Don't cry out. Build something so undeniable they can't ignore it forever. And if they still don't see it, that's all right. The right eyes will. The ones who matter will. But begging, that's not your lane. That's not your story. You are not here to perform for acceptance. You are here to walk with purpose, to stand with conviction, and to move forward unshaken and unapologetic. Because when you know your worth, silence doesn't offend you. It just gives you room to breathe, to build, to become. So let them ignore you. And while they do, go become impossible to overlook. There's a moment in life, maybe more than one, when you'll feel the pressure to shrink, to tone it down, to be less, so that others feel like more. It might not be loud. It might come in a whisper, a mellow, subtle glance, a sideways comment like you're doing too much, or don't be so intense. But make no mistake, that pressure is real, and it's a test. You were never meant to fit into a space that couldn't contain your light. See, when your presence challenges people, they often won't say it out loud. They won't admit that your fire unsettles their comfort. So instead, they'll try to dim you. They'll try to quiet your voice, minimize your ambition, dilute your passion, because it reminds them of what they haven't faced in themselves. But let that be their issue, not yours. The moment you dull your light just to fit in is the moment you lose touch with who you really are. You weren't made to blend in with the background. You weren't built to make people comfortable at the cost of your calling. You have gifts, raw, untamed, and real. That spark inside you, that's not decoration. That's purpose. And the world doesn't need another imitation of what's already safe. It needs truth. It needs courage. It needs the unfiltered, unedited, unapologetic version of you. It's easy to start editing yourself, though. Maybe you tone down your opinions. Hide your dreams. Pretend your ideas aren't that big. Laugh off your own brilliance just to be accepted. But here's the truth. The approval you earn by playing small will always feel hollow. It's the kind that vanishes the second you start to grow. And trust me, growth always comes knocking again. You can't keep pretending to be less than you are and still become who you were meant to be. So stop trying to be liked at the expense of being real. Stop folding your wings to fit into cages you were never meant to enter. Stop thinking you have to dim down just to be digestible. You are not for everyone, and that's not a flaw. That's a filter. Let it work. Let it remove what's not aligned, what's not true, what's not worthy of your full presence. Don't let anyone convince you that being humble means being invisible. Humility isn't about hiding your light. It's about knowing where it came from, about using it with purpose. You can be grounded and still be bold. You can be kind and still be powerful. You can be quiet and still be radiant. And if your light makes others uncomfortable, that's okay. Growth is uncomfortable. Truth is uncomfortable. Real change is uncomfortable. But you weren't created to soothe people's insecurities. You were created to live fully, boldly, freely. So stand tall in your truth. Speak up with clarity. Walk into rooms without shrinking. Let your dreams be big. Let your voice carry. Let your presence speak even before you open your mouth. Because your light, your real, raw, untamed light, is not the problem. It's the answer. And when you let it shine, fully and without apology, you don't just free yourself, you give others permission to do the same. So don't you dare dim down. Not today. Not ever. There's a moment after you've been ignored, disrespected, or dismissed when your emotions start to rise. Your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, and every part of you wants to fire back, to say something, to prove something, to show them they can't treat you that way, but in the restraint. Because when you react emotionally, you give them control. That's what some people are hoping for. They want to see you crack. They want to push you to that edge where your calm breaks, where your peace slips through your fingers. They're not ignoring you by accident. They're testing you, measuring your strength by how loud you get when you're provoked. Don't give them that. Your silence, your patience, your discipline, those aren't signs of weakness. Those are signs of someone who knows who they are. When you respond from emotion alone, especially in the heat of being ignored or underestimated, you risk damaging your own character. You risk stepping out of alignment with who you truly are just to make a temporary point. But ask yourself, what's more important, winning that moment or protecting your long-term path? Because that emotional reaction, it might feel good for a second, but it often costs more than it gives. It's easy to lash out, easy to match disrespect with disrespect, but growth, real growth, requires you to learn how to sit with those feelings without letting them lead you. It takes strength to feel angry and not act on it, to feel overlooked and still walk with confidence, to feel disrespected and still choose grace over revenge. That doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. No. It means you move with intention, not impulse. You address things when it matters, on your terms, in your time, with your full mind present. Not when you're emotionally hijacked and vulnerable to saying or doing something you'll regret. There's power in the pause. There's power in not letting someone else's behavior decide your next move. When you master that, you become unshakable. You stop being a puppet for people's games. You stop dancing for attention or validation. You stay rooted. You stay in control. Because the truth is, not everything deserves a response. Not every insult needs an answer. Some people try to bait you into the chaos they live in just to feel in control again. Don't fall for it. Don't join them in the mud when you were meant to rise above it. Your emotions are valid, but they don't have to be your voice. Let your discipline speak. Let your integrity speak. Let your success speak. Let your calm become the very thing that disturbs the ones who tried to shake you. Because when you walk away from chaos without losing your composure, you don't just win the moment, you win the war. So next time they ignore you, dismiss you, or try to provoke you, remember this: you don't owe anyone a reaction. You owe yourself peace, you owe yourself progress, you owe yourself power. And power isn't always loud. It's often the quietest one in the room, sitting still while everything else tries to move it. Let them wonder why they couldn't get to you. Let them sit in the silence you left behind. Because when you don't react emotionally, you don't just protect your power, you prove you never needed their approval to begin with. There will come a time when the silence gets loud, when you're doing everything right, working hard, staying focused, showing up day after day, and still nobody seems to notice. They scroll past your efforts, they overlook your growth, they act like you're invisible. And quiet, doubt creeps in. That voice inside starts whispering, maybe this isn't worth it. Maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you should stop. But hear this clearly. Don't you dare abandon your purpose. You weren't given your vision by accident. That fire inside you, that dream, that mission, that pull you feel in your gut, that's not just ambition. It's direction. It's a calling. And just because the world hasn't clapped for you yet, doesn't mean you're off course. Some of the greatest things you'll ever do will happen in silence, behind closed doors, with no audience, no praise, and no spotlight. Keep going anyway. See, purpose isn't about recognition. It's about responsibility. You have something in you that's meant to be built, meant to be shared, meant to touch lives. Even if those lives don't acknowledge it right away, it's dangerous to tie your progress to other people's attention. If you only move when they notice, you'll stop the moment they don't. And that's a trap, because most people don't recognize greatness when it's still growing. They see the fruit, but they ignore the seed. They admire the tree, but they forget the roots. And right now, you may be in your rooting season, the part where things are happening under the surface, quietly, steadily, with no applause. But that doesn't mean you're not growing. It means you're preparing. And in that preparation, purpose is forged. But too many people throw it all away in that silent season. They get tired, they get discouraged. They confuse being unseen with being unworthy. And so they quit. They walk away from what they were building. They turn their back on what they were becoming. And in doing so, they never see the full picture of what their purpose was meant to produce. Don't be one of them. You've got to keep building, even when no one's watching. You've got to keep writing, creating, leading, serving, practicing, even when it feels like nobody cares. Because the breakthrough doesn't come to the one who starts the loudest. It comes to the one who endures, the one who doesn't give up just because the room got quiet. Purpose doesn't always feel good. It won't always be fun. There will be days when you question everything. Days when you want to lay it all down. But remember why you started. Remember who you were before the doubt showed up. Go back to that moment when the vision first took hold of you, before the pressure, before the silence, before the wait. That version of you knew something true. That version of you saw the finish line even when it was far off. You've come too far to stop now. Let them ignore you. Let them underestimate you. Let them keep their applause. None of that defines your worth, and none of it should dictate your pace. You walk with purpose. You build with purpose. You live with purpose. And even when no one else believes in it, you do. That's enough. Because if you don't quit, you win. If you don't give in, you rise. And when the day comes, when the light hits what you've built in the dark, they'll wonder how you did it. And you'll smile because you'll know the answer. You never abandon your purpose. We all want to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. It's human. But there's a danger in chasing validation, especially when you start looking for it from the wrong voices. Because when you start measuring your worth by the opinions of people who don't truly see you, you begin to lose yourself piece by piece, quietly, slowly. And before you know it, your identity is shaped by approval instead of truth. Not every voice deserves a seat at your table. It's easy to forget that in a world where opinions come fast and loud. Social media, friends, family, strangers. Everybody's got something to say. Everyone's ready to judge what you're doing, how you're doing it, and whether they think it's enough. And if you're not grounded, you'll start dancing for their applause. You'll start shifting who you are just to win their yes. But the moment you make someone else's validation your compass, you're no longer living your purpose. You're performing for theirs. You need to ask yourself, who are you trying to impress? And more importantly, why? Because not every opinion comes from wisdom. Not every critique comes from clarity. Some people speak from their own wounds, their own fear, their own failure to chase their dreams. They'll project that on you and call it advice. They'll call it concern, but it's really control. And if you're not careful, their limitations will become your ceilings. You don't need everyone to believe in you, just a few right voices. And sometimes not even that. See, there's a big difference between feedback and permission. Feedback can be helpful, can sharpen you, push you to grow. But you should never confuse someone's opinion with a green light to keep going. Your purpose doesn't require their permission. And truth be told, if you're doing something real, something that challenges the norm, something that breaks patterns, not everybody's gonna clap. That's okay. That's how you know you're on the right track. The wrong voices will always make you second guess your calling. They'll make you shrink your ideas, water down your passion, play small so they feel big. But that's not your job. You weren't made to fit into their comfort zones. You were made to push boundaries, to challenge the noise, to rise, even when it makes others uncomfortable. And validation from the wrong source, it doesn't last. It feels good for a moment, sure, a like, a compliment, a nod, but it fades. And then you're chasing it again, living for the next hit of approval. That cycle is exhausting. It robs you of peace. It drains your authenticity. And worst of all, it keeps you from hearing the one voice that actually matters, yours. Because deep down, you know what you're here for. You know what lights you up. You know what you're building, even if they don't. That inner knowing, that's your truth. And it doesn't need an audience to be real. So stop giving your power to people who wouldn't know what to do with it. Stop asking for direction from people who've never been where you're going. Stop looking for validation from people who couldn't even recognize your value if it stood right in front of them. Start trusting yourself more. You are enough, not because they say so, but because you are. Walk like it, speak like it, build like it. And if the wrong voices stay quiet or stay critical, you let them. Your worth isn't up for debate. It never was. Let your actions speak louder than their opinions. Let your work validate your vision. And above all, let your inner voice grow louder than the noise outside. Because when you stop seeking validation from the wrong voices, you finally make room to hear the right one, your own. When you've been ignored, overlooked, or underestimated long enough, bitterness starts to creep in like a slow poison. It doesn't show up loud. It doesn't announce itself. It builds quietly in your thoughts, in your tone, and how you carry yourself. You start to expect disappointment. You start to assume the worst in people. And little by little, your heart hardens, not because you're weak, but because you're tired. But you cannot let bitterness build, because bitterness doesn't protect you, it traps you. It takes the pain that was done to you and turns it into the lens through which you see everything else. You stop trusting, you stop dreaming, you stop loving the way you used to. And that's the real tragedy. Not that they ignored you, not that they doubted you, but that they managed to change you without ever lifting a finger. You have every right to feel hurt, to feel frustrated, but you don't have to carry that weight forever. Pain is a visitor. Bitterness tries to move in. Don't give it a room in your heart. Let it go. Not for them, for you. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's freedom. And choosing not to grow bitter doesn't mean what they did was okay. It means you're not giving it any more power than it already took. You've got things to build, places to go, a purpose to fulfill. Bitterness will only slow you down, cloud your vision, and drain the joy out of everything good coming your way. The strongest people aren't the ones who've never been hurt. They're the ones who didn't let the hurt define them, who didn't let betrayal turn into bitterness, who kept their hearts open even when the world told them to shut it down. So feel the pain, but don't feed the bitterness. Release what you can't control. Choose peace, not poison. Keep your spirit light. Keep your heart clean, because a clear heart can hear purpose more clearly. And the moment you stop letting bitterness build is the moment you step back into your full power, unhardened, unshaken, and truly unstoppable.